10 biggest hiring mistakes first-time CEOs make. Successful startups are all about hiring the right team. Yet, so many first-time CEOs screw up their hiring and destroy their startups. I don't want this to happen to you. In today's video, I'm going to share with you the 10 biggest hiring mistakes first-time CEOs make and how you can avoid making these mistakes. And I'll share what to do if you've made these mistakes already. I hope you like it. Hi, I'm Brett. On my channel, I help early stage startup CEOs like you raise money and grow your startup. So, if this sounds like you, then hit the subscribe button and the bell so you get notified every time I release a new video. Let's get started. And let's start with number 1 on our list. Number 1, hiring the executive a board member or investor recommends. The biggest recruiting mistake I ever made was hiring Tommy to be our VP of sales. Sales were growing, but we needed someone who'd been there before to help scale our sales organization. Magically, 2 of my board members, Gil and Barry, recommended Tommy. He previously had scaled sales in a similar company that Gil and Barry were involved in, to a nice exit. I met with Tommy several times. He had the right experience, that was clear. However, something seemed off, to put it mildly. I ignored it because Gil and Barry kept singing his praises. I had the other board members meet with Tommy as well. Raul said, after meeting with Tommy, I'd hire him based on Gil and Barry's recommendation. That's not exactly a ringing endorsement. Yet, I ignored the warning signs, and I hired Tommy. And you know what happened next. Tommy was a complete disaster, and he quit 3 months after joining the company. It almost seemed like he felt he was reporting to the board, not to me. I've seen this same pattern repeat itself with other CEOs I've worked with where the board recommended someone to. Remember, it's your company. You're under no obligation to hire someone the board or your investors recommend. You're the CEO. The team reports to you, not the board. So, if you find yourself in the situation I did with Tommy, then just fire the person. That's what I should have done. Now, let's move to number 2 on my list. Number 2, recruiting someone that isn't a cultural fit. The tell that Tommy wasn't going to work out was he didn't fit our company culture. There were 4 things we looked for in every employee we hired. We wanted someone that was smart, passionate about our cause, had integrity, and was a cultural fit. The best way I can describe how Tommy didn't fit our culture was we valued people that were open and honest communicators. Within the first week of working with us, it became instantly clear Tommy wasn't being open and honest. We had a meeting with a potential investor that Tommy and Barry knew. The investor mentioned that Tommy was advising another company based in Shanghai. Tommy said the company gave him an apartment in Shanghai as well. By chance, I happened to know someone on the board of directors, so I reached out to Winston. He told me that Tommy was VP of sales for the company. None of this was on Tommy's resume. That's when I knew I had a serious problem. Next, let's move to number 3 on my list. Number 3, you delay hiring to keep more equity for yourself. There's nothing wrong with being a solo founder. However, if your reason for being a solo founder is you want more equity for yourself, then that's just stupid. It goes back to the question of, would you rather have 50% of something or 100% of nothing? Whenever you delay adding a really good person to the team, You increase your risk of failing. One of the most successful companies I'm working with was started by a solo founder. However, he had team members that wanted to be founders but couldn't be founders for various reasons. The most successful company I ever worked with, Maxim Integrated Products, had 10 founders. The more great people you can add to your company, the better. Next, let's move to number 4 on my list. Number 4, you stop recruiting. Even if you don't have any open spots, you should always be recruiting. There are 3 really good reasons you should do this. First, it might not be on your timeline when you find somebody really good to add to the team. Yes, increase the bar when you've met your hiring plan, but keep interviewing top talent because there's always a way to bring on top talent. Second, there's a lot you can learn from constantly interviewing people. Are salaries going up for various positions? Are your competitors vulnerable? You get the idea. There's a ton you can learn. Third, recruiting is like any other muscle. Your recruiting skill will lose strength if you don't exercise it constantly. Now let's move to the flip side of number 4 with number 5 on my list. Number 5, you're recruiting too quickly. Your startup's growth depends on your ability to constantly add talent. However, you need to balance your need to add talent with your budget and the company's actual hiring needs. This typically shows up as revenue is scaling and you hire too many salespeople too quickly. You end up making a trade for quantity over quality. This inevitably leads to unhappy customers, which hurts your ability to grow. Instead, despite the pressure to grow, push yourself and your team to keep your standards high. You won't regret it. Next, let's move to number 6 on my list. Number 6, recruiting executives you don't need. My second biggest mistake after hiring Tommy was making one of my co-founders, Randy, our Chief Operating Officer. Randy was very talented. However, a 6-person startup doesn't need a COO. Early stage startups also don't need a VP of sales or a CFO. Hiring people too early or giving them the wrong titles, like I did with Randy, creates unnecessary problems. Usually the person isn't really good enough to be VP of sales or CFO or COO. So you create the problem of having the person you've just added doing the wrong job. The other issue is the other members of your team will push back when you make a bad hire. Trust me on this one. Next, let's move to number 7 on my list. Number 7, you don't want to hire mercenaries. One of my favorite CEOs I've ever worked with, Chris, said to me, I want to hire missionaries, not mercenaries. And Chris is right. Mercenaries only care about the money. The second another company makes them a better offer, they'll quit. You want employees, especially early on, that are all in. They are true believers in what you are doing. So, avoid the really talented new hire whose CV shows they're changing jobs every 1 to 2 years. Now, let's move to number 8 on my list. Number 8, you pay people different amounts for the same role. You need people that fit the salary range you can afford. It doesn't mean that you drop your quality level. It does mean that you can't pay someone $400,000 if your budget is $200,000. For example, we had the chance to recruit Greg, one of the best engineers in our industry, to our team. Greg told me he was making $400,000 a year. I told him we couldn't afford to pay him that, but we could afford to pay him $180,000 a year and give him a generous stock option grant. The offer was at the top of our range for the job. Greg accepted the job. However, About 1 year later, we were recruiting Joe for a similar role. Joe was another great engineer. He wanted us to give him a salary of $300,000 a year. We passed. And it was the right thing to do. Your team is going to talk about salaries. If you overpay one person on the team, then you better be prepared to overpay everyone on your team. Next, let's move to number 9 on our list. Number 9, be wary of hiring big company executives. The executive you recruit from a very large company with a great background may not translate that well to a startup environment. It's especially true for someone that spent more than 10 years at one large company. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't recruit a big company executive. I am saying you need to make sure the executive is hands-on. Your managers need to be doers too, not just managers, especially at the beginning of your company. Next, let's move to number 10 on my list. Number 10, you don't fire quickly enough. Let's go full circle back to Tommy. I knew within a week of Tommy joining the company, when I found out his resume wasn't accurate, that he wasn't going to work out. I should have immediately fired him. Instead, I waited as Tommy continued to do damage to our sales organization. The other executives were asking me what I was going to do about Tommy. It was a rookie mistake on my part that almost destroyed our whole company. Remember, the team reports to you, not the board. You have a responsibility to your team, to your customers, and to your investors to act quickly when a team member isn't working out. Now, if this content is resonating with you, then please hit the like button right now. One final thought. You have to check references. Speed is of the essence when you're recruiting. However, you should always check references. You should ask everyone you recruit for references. For every manager and executive, you should ask for one employee reference, one peer reference, and one manager reference. And you should try and do backdoor references too, where you talk to people you know that know the reference. Know the employee. Back to Tommy one more time. I thought I had the reference angle covered because Gil and Barry were recommending him. But I should have still asked him for references. I might have caught the problems and saved myself and our company a lot of grief. Now, I have 3 more things for you today. First, if you want to work with me on your startup, then just scan this QR code. Second, you can use my free startup pitch deck template. It has all the slides you need to develop an awesome pitch deck. Scan the QR code to get yours for free. And third, join my free group of startup CEOs, Zero to Pitch. It's a community for startup CEOs focused on growing their companies and raising funding for their companies. Scan the QR code to join. Finally, click the subscribe button to get notified every time I release a new video. I'm Brett at brettjfox.com. Thanks for watching today. Take care. Bye.